All right. So we just wanted to talk to you about our tax program this year, since it is a little bit different. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with our tax site in a normal year, but we have a VITA site every year at our site in Turtle Creek. And this year we are offering a virtual option that we would really love to promote to everybody, because we're a little bit tight on our drop-off appointments. We just have less capacity this year due to COVID. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So just to start off, what is VITA? So VITA is an IRS program that stands for Volunteer Income Tax Preparation. And it's a national program, so they have VITA sites all throughout the United States. And it is tax prep that's totally free and completed by IRS-certified preparers. And our tax site in Turtle Creek is open until April 14th. And so for those of you not familiar, the tax filing deadline is April 15th. So you want to make sure that you get your taxes done before then, so you don't have to worry about any late fees or anything like that. So virtual VITA is what we're really here to talk about today. So this year we're offering a virtual option. That means that you can get your taxes done without leaving your house if your household income was under $57,000 in 2020. So you will still be using our VITA site. We will still be the ones going through all of your documents, the return, preparing everything for you. So it's not like you're doing your own taxes online. So you would just be uploading all of your information virtually through a platform that we will get to in a second. And then we will get all of your information, have all of your documents, verify your identity, and then that would allow us to then be able to prepare the return for you. And we're able to e-file both the federal and state returns, and then we'll get you your local. We can do your local as well. We'll just send it back to you so that you can print it and mail it in to your local tax collector. So we do income tax returns, which means just your earned income throughout the year. We do not do property or rent rebate, although we can direct you to where you can go to get that done for free if that's something that you're looking for. And we don't do business taxes. So if you have a separate business or something like that, we cannot do that. If you're self-employed, we can do that return, and we'll get more into the details of that shortly. So we're using a site called Get Your Refund, and it was created by a nonprofit in Colorado called Code for America, and they work directly with the VITA site. So this platform was made specifically for VITA. So they have implemented a bunch of different security features to make sure that it is safe and secure, and that your information is getting to the right people and to nobody else. So we have a separate link for Get Your Refund, which is here, this www.getyourrefund.org/HSCC. That will take you directly to our site, so that someone from our site will be prepping your returns. We are part of a coalition, so there are people all over the county and in Westmoreland County that can do your returns. If you would like to work with someone that you've worked with in the past, you can go to their direct links. And then Get Your Refund is also a national program, because as I said, it's with all of the VITA sites. So you are able to, if you don't go to our specific link, they will still match you with whoever's closest to your zip code. So we're going to go ahead and look at the Get Your Refund process. So I'm going to switch over to all right. So this is the specific Get Your Refund presentation to give you an idea of what that process really looks like. So we're going to quickly go over the traditional VITA process for people who may not be familiar with it. So in a typical year, the taxpayer would come to our site. They would be met by a greeter who would provide them with an intake sheet and ask for their IDs and social security card because we need to be able to verify identity. So you would fill out the intake sheet. The greeter would verify the identity, make sure you have your ID, your spouse's ID if you have a spouse, as well as your social security card for you and your spouse if you have one, and anyone that you're trying to claim. So again, those are things that we're going to need this year as well. And then in a typical year, once you're done with the intake sheet, a tax preparer would come. You go back with a tax preparer who would complete your return in TaxSlayer with you sitting there with them throughout the whole process. And then once the tax preparer finishes, a quality reviewer would come over. A VITA requirement is that every return is reviewed by 2 people. So we just double check and make sure everything's good to go. That is going to be the same for this year as well. So you would sit with the reviewer as they went through the return with you and just double checked everything. And then once that process was done, you would sign the form 8879, and that allows us to e-file the return on your behalf. And then we would transmit the return in TaxSlayer, and that would be the end of the process, and you would leave. So everything would happen in an hour appointment while you were at the site. So this year it's a little bit different. Due to COVID, it's a little harder to do the face-to-face process. So the process that I just described is not happening at all this year. Instead, we are using Get Your Refund to be able to emulate the VITA process through a virtual platform. So this is just a brief overview. You're going to go to the website. You are able to use it on a computer as well as on a mobile device. So if you have a smartphone, you can do it right on your phone. It honestly might be easier to do it on a phone just because you will need to upload pictures of all of your documents. And if you use a phone or a tablet, it's really easy to just take a picture and upload it. So we are able to file up to 4 years of returns. So if you are somebody who needs to file returns from 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, we can do those for you, and Get Your Refund will allow you to upload those. And then the platform just makes sure that you're eligible for VITA. There are a few different specifications that would make someone's return out of scope for VITA. So we won't really go into super detail about that, but the biggest one is the income. If you make more than $57,000, we aren't able to do the return. And they'll match you, or if you use our direct link, you'll be sent straight to our site. And then they'll ask for your phone number and email address. In order to do it completely virtually, you will need an email address because that is how we will have you sign your final document, through a secure link sent through email. And this is just, you can opt into either emails or texts or both, and that's how we will communicate with you throughout the process if we need more information or if something is missing. So it is really helpful to make sure you put the option that you're going to respond to. So if you're someone that would prefer a text, make sure you mark that. And then there is some legal stuff. You do need to consent to using the Get Your Refund platform in order for us to be able to do your return. And so it'll just walk you through all of the legal things and kind of how the process works, and just that you're consenting to all of the steps of the process so that we can do your return for you. So you will consent to that and sign it. And then they will go into asking you some specific questions about your situation. So they'll ask you how many jobs you had. This is helpful. So if you say you had 4 jobs, you should have 4 W-2s that correspond to that. So there's a bunch of different questions. If you've ever been to a VITA site, it's like that long intake sheet. that you fill out when you come in. So basically they just took the intake sheet and put it into a mobile virtual questions. So we again will need identity verification. So in order to do that virtually, you'll need not only a picture of your ID and your social, but you'll also need to upload a selfie of you holding your ID in your hand, like this nice little image, just so that we can really verify your identity and make sure you are the person that is in the picture. And then again, we're going to ask for your tax documents. So any tax documents that you have, W-2s, 1099s, anything like that, and we'll go more specifically into the different types of tax documents that you might have. But you'll have to upload everything. If you don't upload it, we can't prepare it, or if you forget to upload something, we might end up preparing your return without that tax document, and that is an issue, and you will need to have an amended return. So make sure you upload all the tax documents that you have. And it'll ask you if you want direct deposit. If you do want direct deposit, you're going to need to also provide us with your bank information so that we can verify that. And then once you're done with all of the questions, they will send you a verification that has your confirmation number. The confirmation number is important. You're going to want to hold on to that because you will need to enter your confirmation number when you sign your final return as a security verification. So if you end up losing that, we are able to let you know what it is, but it is important to hold on to. And then it'll be on our end, and we will go through the process that was described for the traditional VITA. So you helped get us to a point where we can then begin the intake process. Once you upload all your documents, somebody will call you to do the intake process. So again, we just want to call, make sure that everything that you answered is correct. If there was a question that you weren't sure of, we can go over it with you just to make sure that we fully understand your situation. We have all of the documents that we need and there isn't anything missing. And once the intake is done, it will then go to a tax preparer. The tax preparer will complete the return in tax layer. This year it'll be different. You won't be on.
Hey Liz, yeah.
Sorry. So you won't be on the phone with them for the whole prep process. You'll just be on the phone for the intake and then the review. So for the quality review, somebody will call you to go over the return. So they will send it to you electronically so that you can see the return. And again, anytime we're sending information back and forth, whether we're sending you your final document or you're sending us more information to upload, it will be through a secure link. So we won't be sending anything through text messages or email messages. It'll all be through a link that is texted or emailed to you. So we will send you that final document so you can look at it as we go through it and explain it to you. Make sure we answer any of your questions. You verify that all the information on there looks good. And once that happens, we will then send you another secure link to sign your final tax document. It'll just be like checking 2 boxes to get your signature on there. And then that allows us to then e-file the return. So this just shows you, this is what it will look like when we ask you to sign the return. You'll check that you verify both of those. And then once it's signed, we can transmit the tax return. So that's kind of the process. I am going to show you what Get Your Refund looks like. We're just going to go through and do a mock one. You guys are looking at my Google screen, correct? Okay, so you're going to want to make sure you type in /HSCC so that gets you to the right place. And at that top part where it says you are at FTP Human Services Center Corp, that means you're in the right spot. So we're going to hit get started and you're going to want to do file taxes myself. All right. Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong option. Sorry. You're going to do file taxes with help. Do not do file taxes yourself. That would be you doing it on your own. So this is with the help of a tax expert, which is us at our site. So you can, these are the years you can check that you need to file for. So we're just going to say we only need 2020, but again, if you need more than 1 year, we can do all the way back to 2017. So these are some things that would disqualify you from VITA. So if you do have income from a rental property, it would be out of scope for VITA. Money from owning a farm. This has 66,000, but again, for us, the income limit is 57,000. But we're going to say, nope, none of the above apply to me. And this just gives you the overview of the Get Your Refund process. All right, so we're going to say zip code. All right, so again, it's just verifying that the Human Services Center is going to be the site that you will be directed to. So we hit continue. And then you're going to want to put in your phone number. And check if it can receive text messages. And then you're going to want to enter your email address. Oh, I put the same phone number in, so it's not going to let me. Give me 1 second. So as you can see, you can't have 2 taxpayers that have the same phone number on 2 separate accounts. Get Your Refund won't let you go forward with it. So since we've already done a demo, I got to switch this phone number. I will do. Okay, so again, you can do email or text or both. And this is the legal information. So it's a bunch of different information just about the process. When you go through it, you can read through all that. I won't read it all to you right now.
So got the chair stuff, you need to come get out of here.
And then you put your birthday. All right. So this is just some questions about your situation. If you had a permanent disability, if you were legally blind, if you are a full-time student in college, if you were in the U.S. on a visa. We're going to say none of the above. And then it's going to ask if you've ever been issued an identity protection PIN. So if you've ever had identity theft issues and the IRS sent you a 6-digit PIN, you want to make sure that you add that onto your tax return, because if they have sent you one and we don't put it in there, then it's going to reject it and it's not going to let us e-file it. So this is important, and this will be sent to you via a letter from the IRS, and you would get it annually. So we're going to say no, but again, if you have that, make sure you enter it. Have you ever been legally married? And would you like to claim anyone? So if you do have dependents, you want to make sure you get all their information on there so we can add them to your return. It'll ask if you paid any child or dependent care expenses. This is something that you can put on your return for a credit. So if you did pay expenses, you want to make sure you add that. Did you adopt a child? Was someone in your family a college or other post-high school student? Did you pay any student loan interest? If you did pay student loan interest, you should have a 1098-E from your student loan servicer. How many jobs did you have? I had 1 job. Did you live or work in any other state? Nope. Tell us about your work. So in this situation, they're just trying to understand what type of form you had for income. So if you worked for someone else, this means like you got a W-2. So if you have a W-2, you can check there. If you worked for like Uber or Lyft or something like that and you got a 1099 miscellaneous, which this year would likely be a 1099 NEC or a 1099K, you would check that you were self-employed. If you received unemployment benefits, which a lot of people received unemployment benefits this year, you would have received a 1099-G. So if you got unemployment, you do need that tax form. So you would check this if that's the case. And if you had any tip income that wasn't included, you would also mark that. If you received any disability benefits, any income from interest or dividends. So if you have a bank account that is growing interest, your bank would be sending you a 1099 INT or a 1099 DIV for dividends. So if you were sent one of those, you want to make sure you include it. If you sold any stocks, bonds, or real estate in 2020. If you have Social Security income, retirement income, or retirement contributions. And if you received any other money. So sometimes you get money that is not reported in any form, but you still want to include that on your tax return. And if you just want to include documentation of what you received, I did get a couple questions in the registration about people who don't receive a W-2 for their wages. That is totally fine. You just want to provide some documentation of what the wages were, and we'll make sure it gets on the tax return reported as income that wasn't reported elsewhere. And then if you purchase health insurance through the marketplace, so this is like healthcare.gov. If you've got health insurance through there, you're going to need a 1095-A, and they should have sent you one. Other than that, you don't need any documentation for your health insurance. And if you had a health savings account, so this one, you would probably have a 1099-SA, or it would be shown on your W-2. This is a separate account, a separate savings account that's specifically for qualified medical expenses. And then if you paid any medical, dental, or prescription expenses, these can be deductible if you itemize your return, which most people do not, because it's most likely more beneficial to take the standard deduction, and that's something we'll get to in the second half of the webinar. And if you made any charitable contributions, those can be deductible up to $300 this year. Any income from gambling, we need that. Eligible school supplies. If you're a teacher, you can deduct any school supplies that were unreimbursed for you. And then any state, local real estate, sales taxes, that's also something that would be relevant if you're itemizing your return. If you're not itemizing, then it's not necessary. And if you received a state or local income tax refund with the form 1099-G, so if they sent you a 1099-G about your refund, this would be a yes. Did you sell a home? You should have received a tax form for that as well. Any mortgage interest, this is again something for deducting if you are itemizing. Did you receive the first time home buyer credit in 2008? Did you have a loss related to a declared federal disaster area? Did you have debt canceled or forgiven by a lender? Did you receive a letter from the IRS? If you received any type of letter from the IRS about owing or a problem with your previous return or anything like that, check yes and upload a picture of it, and we can help figure out what the issue is that we want and make sure that we resolve it for you. And this is asking if you've ever had one of these credits disallowed in a prior year. So if you had earned income credit or child tax credit, and then they disallowed it for some reason, not if you've just ever received one of these. Did you make any estimated tax payments? Sometimes if people know that they're going to owe, they will make estimated payments throughout the year. We just need to know that so that you don't pay double. And did you report a business loss on your 2019 tax return? If you purchase energy efficient home items, this might be something that could qualify for a credit. And then any other information, if you have something specific to your situation that you think we should know. One thing that they don't ask about that we do need to know is your stimulus payments. So if you fill this out, make sure you type into this section your stimulus. So we need to know how much you got for each one, because if you did not get the right amount or you didn't get one of them or both of them, you will get that back as a recovery rebate credit on your tax return. So I got $1,200 and $600, so that would mean I'm good and I'm not going to get anything back. All right, so once you finish all of the questions, now you're going to collect all of your documents, and this is where they're going to have you upload everything. So I'm not going to upload everything just because I am not actually uploading tax documents right now, but this is the last step really, and then it'll ask you for your bank account information. And it's really helpful if you can upload a picture of a check, like just a blank check. You can write void on it if you feel more comfortable doing that. That way we can verify your bank account information and ensure that it gets to the right place. And then it's just going to send a little update with a text or email, whichever one I opted into, with the confirmation number. So going to go back to the other page, if I can. Not that one. All right. Are you looking at the presentation now? Okay, great. So it looks like there's a lot of questions in the chat. Is there anything to go over right now? Abby or Stephanie, or have you been answering as we go?
I've been answering as we go. I think we're okay.
Okay, great. So again, feel free to continue putting questions in the chat. Okay, so we're going to go over some of the questions that people already put in the registration. There were a lot of good questions in there. So first, we're just going to go over all the documents that you need. So if you get income from wages, you're going to get a W-2 for that. Or as I said, if they didn't report it, you'll just show documentation and we'll include that as other income. But you should get a W-2 for every single job that you worked. And it doesn't matter if you only worked it for like 1 month in 2020. Any job that you worked, you will receive a W-2 for, and that needs to be reported on your tax return. For self-employment income, so this would be a 1099 NEC or a 1099 MISC. This year, they're typically going to be an NEC. You can also have a 1099K for Uber, but this is jobs like Uber or Lyft or some other freelance or contracting work that is considered self-employed. So you want to make sure that you have that form. And then tuition and student loan interest. So if you pay tuition, you should get a 1098-T from your college. A lot of times they don't always email it to you or let you know it's there, and you kind of have to go onto your platform and find it, but it is there, and you do need to report that information. And then if you paid any student loan interest, you'll get a 1098-E, and that is going to be, you'll be able to find that through your student loan servicer. So whoever you pay your student loans to, they will be able to provide you with a 1098-E. And then unemployment income, again, a very important one, especially for this year. You will receive a 1099-G if you received unemployment, and we need that to be able to file your return. And then interest or dividend income from bank accounts. One thing I didn't put on here is 1099-Bs. So if you had the sale of stocks or bonds, you'll get a 1099-B. We need that as well. And then retirement income. If it's a pension or IRA, it's going to come as a 1099-R, and that'll come from whoever the payee is. And then if you get Social Security from the Social Security Administration, you'll get a SSA 1099, and we need to report that as well. Health insurance, again, the only people that need a health insurance form is if you have healthcare through the marketplace, like healthcare.gov, and they will send you a 1095-A. If you have that health insurance, you need to file the 1095-A on your return. Sometimes employers will send you a 1095-B or a 1095-C. If you have health insurance through them, you don't need to report those ones for 2020. If you have prior years, you will need those forms, but we're going to stick to 2020 for now. And then documentation of any child care expenses paid. So again, if you pay for daycare, you're going to want to have the provider provide you with a kind of like a summary of what you paid for the year, and we need their employer identification number in order to get that credit for you, because you could qualify for the child credit, which would be helpful for your return. So any questions on tax documents? I'm going to stop there.
And feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions if you have them.
I do want to highlight, someone in the chat was asking about a 1095-A. If you haven't received it in the mail or through email, you can log into your account through healthcare.gov, and they will make sure that 1095-A form is there for you.
Great. And again, we will do an intake process with you if you decide to do your taxes with us. So we will ask you all of these questions again and just confirm. If you tell us that you have interest income and we don't see a 1099 INT, we will ask you for that. So we will help and make sure that we have the whole picture.
I did have a question. I might have missed it. I was just wondering, okay, is there a cost in actually filing with you guys?
Nope, it's totally free.
Okay, and back on the other question that I was wondering about, I don't have any dependents this year. I did last year because they were living with me, but I'm not claiming them this year. However, I do take care of an older gentleman in my home. And somebody said, well, you know, you can claim them. And I was wondering, really?
It depends. So that is something that I think if you do it through us, you should note that he lives in your home and that you watch after him. It comes down to, it's a little more complicated, so I can't give you a total yes or no answer, but that's something that if you just make sure to note, we will talk through that with you and determine whether or not you can claim him.
Okay. Okie-dokie. I think that was all my questions for now. And you said we can come back later and ask questions or whatnot, or?
Yep, we're gonna keep going to a few more questions and then So we're not done yet. There's plenty of time for more questions.
Okay.
So one thing that came up quite a few times is how do the stimulus checks relate to taxes this year? So it is not taxable income. You will not pay taxes on the stimulus payments. It's also referred to economic impact payments, or EIPs. So just a FYI, those are the same things. You just need to put it in on your tax return because they need to know that you got the right amount. So if you do not put it in, but you did receive it, then you're going to get it again, and then you're going to run into issues. So make sure you put, if you received it, put how much you got. It's not going to be taxed. And then if you did not receive it, or if you only got part of it and you think you should have gotten more because you have a child or something like that, it's redeemable on your tax return through the recovery rebate credit. That's what they're calling it. So if you did not receive it or did not receive the full amount that you were owed, you will get it back as part of your refund. If you're in a situation where you don't normally file taxes and the only thing that you need is your stimulus payment, you should file this year. The IRS is saying just file this year. That's the only way people are going to be getting the stimulus if they didn't get it. So we don't have to put any income or anything like that if you don't have anything to report, and it'll automatically give you back what you're owed for the stimulus. And then there were a few questions on itemizing versus taking the standard deduction, which I did talk about a little bit as I was going through. This is kind of a confusing topic, so I'm going to try my best to explain this. But in recent years, they raised the standard deduction with new tax law to a point where it's usually the most beneficial option for most of the people who file with us to take the standard deduction. So what that means is it's a deduction that they're subtracting from your gross income. So if you are a single person, it's $12,400. If you are married filing jointly, that deduction is $24,800. And if you are head of household, which means that you are single and not married, but you have dependents or you're claiming children, and you take care of their support, then you would be head of household, and that would be $18,650. So, for example, I am single, so my standard deduction is $12,400. So if I made $30,000, they would deduct the $12,400, and whatever's left over is my taxable income. So I can't do quick math in my head. That's not what I'm good at, but you understand what I'm saying. So if I wanted to itemize, it would only be beneficial if I had enough deductions that would put me above $12,400. So I would have had to have enough charitable contributions and mortgage interest payments, property tax payments that I paid that total up to more than $12,400 in order for it to be beneficial for me to itemize my return. So if you do want to itemize your return, again, you would need to have more itemizations, more deductions than what the standard would be. And qualified deductions include those things like mortgage interest payments, charitable contributions, medical and dental expenses, property tax payments, things like that. So when they ask you for that information, those are really only relevant if you're itemizing your return. So are there any questions on that? Because that can be kind of confusing.
It is kind of confusing because my question was, okay, so I use my car to go to for my job. However, they do give us the option to do travel expenses and get reimbursed. I haven't done that yet this year, but because I'm trying to still get authorization to do it. But the one thing about it is that since they do give us the option to get reimbursed, can you claim that?
No, because that would not be an unreimbursed expense.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm seeing some questions. So this is a good question that we actually don't have in the presentation, so I will hit on it. If you claim the earned income credit in 2019 but had lower income in 2020, can you use your 2019 income again to claim the credit? Yes. So for people who have lower income because of unemployment and things like that because of COVID, you are able to use your 2019 adjusted gross income and earned income credit to be able to claim that credit this year. All we would need is your 2019 tax return, because we would need the information about your AGI from 2019 and what you got with the EIC, which is the earned income credit. So that is something that they are allowing people to do this year. If you think it will be more beneficial to use your 2019 income to get the earned income credit, you are able to do that. Just make sure you let us know that. And then the stimulus amount, that's a good question as well. So the first round, and so you want to report both the first and second round, even though the second round came in 2021. So the first round, if you are just one adult, it was $1,200. So everybody should have gotten $1,200, and then you should have gotten $500 for each qualified dependent who is 17 and under, I believe. So a lot of people are running into a situation where their child is 18 or 19 and they didn't get it. Unfortunately, you won't get the stimulus for that. So again, for that first round, it's $1,200 and then $500 for each dependent. And then for 2021, it's $600 and then $600 for each dependent. And it's $1,200 and $600 for each adult. So if you are a married couple, you should have gotten $2,400 and then $500 for each child. And same for this year, you would have gotten $1,200 if you're married for the 2021 credit. And this is information that I can definitely send out afterwards. I'll send out the PowerPoint as well as some answers to these questions because I know it's a lot of information. All right.
There was another question about the stimulus payments. So even if you don't have a bank account, you still want to file to claim that stimulus that you did not receive, and they'll send you a paper check to the address listed on your tax return.
There was also a question about an attendee's daughter had a part-time job and she paid her quarterly taxes for the first and second quarters, but did not for the third and fourth. Is she able to manage this on her own to file her return by herself? Yes. As you saw through the presentation, it does prompt to ask if you've made any quarterly estimated payments as part of the intake process. A second question was, if the income exceeds $57,000, is there a way to receive free tax assistance for tax completion? So there is another website called My Free Taxes that if you do exceed the limits for VITA, you could utilize that site. However, that is you filing on your own. You would not have that additional support that a site like ours provides.
All right. So then the next question that we got was about charitable giving. So another change in tax law for 2020 with the CARES Act was that you can deduct up to $300 for charitable giving, even if you're taking the standard deduction. So in a normal year, you would need to be itemizing in order to deduct any charitable giving. But this year, even if you're taking just the standard, you can still deduct up to $300 to a 501c3 or church or a qualified charitable organization. But it needs to be cash donations. In-kind donations don't count for this one. And that would just be reducing your taxable income. So that was a good question. Did we get a question in the chat? $300 per return. So if it's married, it's still $300. And then we got a question about how to minimize your refund, which is a really good question because it is ideal to keep your refund as small as possible. I know that sounds silly, because you want to get a nice big tax refund. But when you get a refund, it means that you overpaid the government throughout the year. So you essentially provided them with a free loan. And so you don't really want to do that. You want to get your money that you deserve throughout the year. So one way to make sure that you are getting as minimum as possible is by keeping your W-4 with your employer as accurate as possible. So if you ask to fill out one of the new W-4s, it's a little more specific about, you fill out what your filing status is, if you have any dependents. It's a little more straightforward than the choosing 0, 1, or 2 withholdings. So they do have a new W-4 that will help make it a lot more accurate. So that is a good way. Just make sure that your information's up to date with your employer. And that's the case whenever, a lot of times we see issues with state and local, that addresses or things are not up to date with their employer, or it might be up to date with the employer, but the employer still hasn't put it into process. And so they either are owing too much or getting too much back on their state and local returns. So just communicating with your employer and making sure that they have all your information and that it's accurate as possible will make your taxes at the end of the year easier. I know sometimes it's on the employer and it's a little bit out of your hands at times, but just doing your best with being as open and clear about your situation is ideal. And then filing previous years was a question. Again, we can do prior year returns. So that is an option that we can help you with. And then somebody asked how can someone incarcerated receive a stimulus? So people who are incarcerated are eligible to receive the stimulus payments. They will need to file a 2020 tax return, however, in order to get it. The IRS has pretty much decided that they will not be sending out any more. They won't be doing their like quick file or anything like that. Everybody will need to file a 2020 return if they want to get the stimulus. And that includes the hopeful third round of stimulus that will probably be coming out as well. That's going to be based on the 2020 tax return. So it really is important to file this year if you have not or are not planning to. And then we can help people who are incarcerated with our virtual site. That would require that they have access to internet, which I know is not always the case. So I think that prisons should also be giving people the option for and have the actual tax forms as well. So there should be options. It may be more difficult than it should be to get it filed, but it should be possible to do. I have a friend who works as a social worker in Allegheny County Jail, and I asked her for more information about what that process looks like. So I'm happy to send out follow-up information whenever I get an answer to that. But that was a really good question. What about people on SS benefits? Do they file? Yes. So if you get Social Security and you received both, so ideally people who receive only Social Security should have gotten both stimulus. If they did not, they do need to file. I know you don't normally file, but the IRS is just recommending in order to get that stimulus payment to file the return. You won't owe anything. You're not technically required, but we recommend it so that you can get your stimulus payment. All right, so those are all of the questions that we had from beforehand. So we are happy to answer any more questions. The documents people on Social Security need, they should have gotten a 1099 SSA. If you're talking about people who receive SSI, they would not have gotten a document and they don't need to. They can come in, and if someone has nothing to report, then we can just not report anything and they'll still get the recovery rebate credit for the stimulus. So that is possible to do this year. So if they didn't get any tax documents at all, that's okay. They just need to tell us that they don't have any income that they need to report, and we can fill out a return for them to make sure they get their stimulus. And this is our information. Our tax line is on here for you, as well as our email addresses. And I will again be sure to send all this information out in a follow-up email. But are there any other questions that people have that we can answer? Whether in the chat or unmute yourselves.
So the only time that we would need information about your health insurance is if you bought health insurance through the marketplace specifically. If you got your health insurance from anywhere else, or if you don't have health insurance at all, that's totally fine, and we don't need any information about that. So for COBRA health insurance payments, we won't need information on that. We only need the 1095-A if you purchase through the marketplace, which is the Affordable Care Act.
Any other questions? I know we went through a lot.
I'll add the link to the chat again for our Get Your Refund site.
So unfortunately, we do not have interpretation services, but I do believe that Just Harvest can help with some interpretation services. I know specifically for Spanish speakers. So if that is the language you're asking about, I do know that Just Harvest should be able to help, and we can send you the link for their site if you would like. All right, so I will send all this information out to you guys. We'll send you the link to get your refund. We really encourage you to do virtual, but we are happy to answer any questions that come up. And again, if you have a tricky situation, and we will help you through it, we'll talk you through it, make sure that we have all the information that we need and we are filing your taxes correctly. And I just want to say that I'm going to be sending out a follow-up survey that has a few questions for you, and there will be a chance to win an Amazon gift card if you fill it out. So I would ask that you guys please also fill out the feedback survey, because that helps us out a lot. But other than that, if there are no other questions, I will let you all go and enjoy your day. Thanks so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.